Good morning and welcome to this morning's hearing. Before we begin, I'll ask Ms. Wessinger-Hill to please read the docket.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we are here for the proceeding in docket number 2020-4-G, which is the matter of the annual review of the purchased gas adjustment and gas purchasing policies of Piedmont Natural Gas Company, Incorporated. This hearing had been scheduled for July 9th, 2020 at 10 a.m. Mr. Chairman, due to the public health concerns and the COVID-19 pandemic, this proceeding has been scheduled to be conducted virtually. It is my understanding that all parties and witnesses, as well as our technology, is fully functioning and that every witness is ready and available with regard to this matter. Mr. Chairman, the docket is in order.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we'll do the roll call for commissioners. If you will just answer when I call your name. Commissioner Belser.
Here.
Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Commissioner Irvin.
Here.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams is still on military leave and Commissioner Randall is here. Now we will take appearances by the parties, first from Piedmont.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mindy McGrath. I'm with the law firm of McGuire Woods. I'm representing Piedmont Natural Gas.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. McGrath.
Good morning. This is Rich McPherson with the law firm of McGuire Woods, and I'm local counsel for Piedmont Natural Gas.
Great. Welcome, Mr. McPherson. ORS. We can't hear you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Leslie Hammonds and Jeff Nelson, legal staff for the Office of Regulatory Staff.
Great, thank you. We can hear you now. That was good.
Thank you.
All right, preliminary matters.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. As you're aware, a settlement agreement has been executed by Piedmont Natural Gas and ORS and was filed with the Commission on June 30th, 2020. Pursuant to the settlement, the parties agreed to stipulate into the record the pre-filed direct testimony and exhibits of the company and ORS witnesses without cross-examination. Parties also agreed that the company's gas purchasing policies and practices during the review period of April 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2020 were reasonable and prudent, and that the company complied with relevant statutes, regulations, and commission orders during the review period. The parties asked that the settlement agreement filed on June 30th be entered into the record as hearing exhibit number 1.
Will be entered as hearing exhibit number 1, the settlement agreement. Okay, thank you. Anything else in a preliminary matter that we need?
Mr. Chairman, we'll just note that the parties have consulted with Commission staff and have agreed to file a joint proposed order by July 16th.
Okay, thank you. And we probably will restate that at the end to get it on twice. Wonderful. So that's everything preliminarily. Okay. Then we will go to Ms. Tomlinson for you to present Piedmont's case. Ms. McGrath, I'm sorry. I was in the wrong line.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Piedmont would like to call Ms. Mary Beth Tomlinson as its first witness. Ms. Tomlinson, can you please state your name for the record?
Mary Beth Tomlinson?
Wait, first, before we do that, we're going to need to swear her in. And,
yes, I'm sorry.
That's my fault. I've gotten everybody confused with calling the wrong names and getting jumbled up here. So, are we going to get Ms. Tomlinson on the screen? Okay, here we go. All right. Ms. Tomlinson, do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, now, Ms. McGrath.
Perfect. Ms. Tomlinson, can you please state your name for the record, please?
Mary Beth Tomlinson,
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Piedmont Natural Gas. I am the manager of gas accounting. My responsibilities include recording the cost of gas on Piedmont's books, maintaining a proper match of revenues and cost of gas on Piedmont's income statements, verifying volumes and prices on all invoices related to the purchase and transportation of natural gas, and recording gas inventory and deferred accounts.
And Ms. Tomlinson, did you prepare or cause to be prepared direct testimony consisting of 3 pages and 2 exhibits marked MBT-1 and MBT-2, which were filed in this docket on June 2nd?
Yes.
Are you also the same Ms. Tomlinson who pre-filed settlement testimony consisting of 2 pages on June 30th?
Yes.
And do you have any corrections to your testimony or exhibits?
No, I do not.
Mr. Chairman, Piedmont would move to have the pre-filed direct testimony of Ms. Mary Beth Tomlinson be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, and that her 2 exhibits marked MBT-1 and MBT-2 be entered into evidence as a composite exhibit, marked composite exhibit number 2.
Okay, Ms. Tomlinson's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as though given orally from the stand, and her exhibits MBT 1 and 2 will be entered as exhibit number 2.
Thank you. And Piedmont would also ask that Ms. Tomlinson's settlement testimony be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand and be entered into evidence as hearing exhibit number 3.
Okay, Ms. Tomlinson's pre-filed settlement testimony will be entered into the record as though given orally from the stand. And do we need an exhibit?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, we've already got the
Okay.
settlement agreement as hearing exhibit number 1.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Tomlinson, have you prepared a summary of your pre-filed direct and settlement testimony?
Yes, I have.
Can you please read your summary for the commission?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Mary Beth Tomlinson, and I'm the manager of gas accounting for Piedmont Natural Gas Company. I filed direct testimony and exhibits in this proceeding on June 2nd, 2020, and on June 30th, I filed settlement testimony. The purpose of my direct testimony is to provide the commission with Piedmont's gas cost and hedging plan accounting data and end-of-period balances for the review period in this proceeding. Pursuant to prior commission directives, Piedmont maintains a gas cost deferred account in which it records on a monthly basis its gas cost expenses, amounts of gas costs recovered, and deferrals. For this review period, Piedmont's end-of-period balance in the purchased gas deferred account was an overcollection of $1,450,387.43. The ORS has conducted an audit of the entries to Piedmont's gas cost deferred account relevant to the review period in this proceeding. A summary of the monthly activity in Piedmont's gas cost deferred account is attached to my testimony as Exhibit MBT-1. Piedmont also maintains a hedging account in which it records the expenses, gains, and losses associated with its hedging plan. ORS also reviewed and audited this account activity as part of this proceeding. A summary of the activity in this account is attached to my testimony as Exhibit MBT-2. The purpose of my settlement testimony is to discuss and support the settlement agreement.
Hang on, wait a minute, Ms. Tomlinson, 1 second. I think we've got somebody's phone that's not muted, and we're getting conversation in the background. So if everybody will make sure your phones are muted. Okay.
Ms. Tomlinson, just to assist the court reporter, why don't you start with reading your summary when the settlement testimony began.
Okay. The purpose of my settlement testimony is to discuss and support the settlement agreement between ORS and Piedmont in this proceeding. The settlement agreement provides that 1, Piedmont's gas purchasing policies and practices during the review period were reasonable and prudent. 2, Piedmont properly adhered to the gas cost recovery provisions of its gas tariff and relevant commission orders during the review period. 3, Piedmont managed its hedging plan during the review period in a reasonable and prudent manner consistent with commission orders. And 4, the end-of-period balances for Piedmont's hedging account and the gas cost deferred account are those reflected in my pre-filed direct testimony and exhibits. The Commission's approval of the settlement agreement is in the interest of Piedmont and the public interest. The settlement agreement is offered by all parties as a fair, reasonable, and full resolution of all issues in this proceeding. Piedmont believes that the settlement agreement reached by the parties in this proceeding addresses the concerns of the using and consuming public while preserving the financial integrity of Piedmont. Accordingly, Piedmont recommends that the Commission approve the settlement agreement as filed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tomlinson. Mr. Chairman, Ms. Tomlinson is available for questions from the Commission at this time.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Tomlinson, I have just one question that I was looking at. The weather normalization adjustment is, supposed to have a smoothing effect on rates during extreme conditions. On your MBT1, the flow months of January and February contributed to increases in costs of like a little over $1 million per month associated with the weather normalization adjustment. What conditions caused a weather normalization adjustment to have such a large increase in those months to the ratepayers?
The normal then warmer weather contributed to it. So it's designed to minimize the effect of variations. And so when it's warmer, it benefits the company.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was thinking. I just wanted to make sure that you told me that too. So thank you. Commissioners, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Urban. I have a question for the witness.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Go ahead.
Ms. Thomason, how are you this morning?
Doing well. How are you?
Great. On your exhibit MBT2 of your pre-filed direct testimony, you testified there were no proceeds from the positions for the first test period that would normally reduce the cost of hedging to ratepayers. My question is, why were there no proceeds from hedging when we've typically seen in the past proceeds from hedging in previous years?
So we use a model based on RMI, and there were the prices were so low that there was no need to call on those hedges. And Todd is probably the better person to respond to that.
All right, so what your testimony is that natural gas prices dropped so low there was no need to even consider hedging during the test year?
We may have hedged. We didn't call on any of those hedges. The model did not tell us that it's like an automatic trigger that tells us when the hedges are going to come through.
Based on the market prices?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Belser.
Good morning, Ms. Tomlinson.
Good morning.
I'm looking at your exhibit MBT1. I'm just curious as to the variances in the monthly interest rate. What causes that?
So that interest rate is the 10-year Treasury interest rate plus 65 basis points. So it's all based on what the Wall Street Journal has at the end of the month.
And that's set by a prior commission order?
Correct.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Ms. McGrath, any redirect?
No redirect.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Tomlinson, thank you for your testimony and thank you for being here today. And you may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McGrath, if we'll call the next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Piedmont next calls Todd Brees.
Okay, as soon as we get Mr. Brees up here, we'll swear him in. And all right. Okay, Mr. Brees, Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. McGrath, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brees, can you please state your name for the record?
Todd Brees,
And whom are you employed by and in what capacity?
Piedmont Natural Gas Company Incorporated. I manage the natural gas trading group and supervise the short and long-term purchasing of supply and optimization of pipeline capacity, storage, and supply assets. I also oversee the administration of the company's approved hedging plan.
And Mr. Brees, are you the same Mr. Brees that pre-filed direct testimony in this proceeding on June 2nd, consisting of 18 pages?
Yes.
And was this testimony prepared by you or at your direction?
Yes.
And do you have any corrections to your testimony?
No.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, Piedmont would move to have the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Todd Brees be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand and be entered into evidence as hearing exhibit number, I believe we're on 4 now.
Yeah, we won't enter it as an exhibit. Mr. Brees's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as though given orally from the stand. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you,
okay.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brees, have you prepared a summary of your testimony?
Yes, I have.
Would you please read your summary for the commission?
Yes, I will. Good morning. My name is Todd Brees, and I am the manager of natural gas trading and optimization for Piedmont Natural Gas Company Incorporated. The purpose of my direct testimony is to describe Piedmont's gas purchasing policies and hedging activity during the review period of April 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2020, pursuant to the directives contained in Commission Order Number 88-294, dated April 6, 1988. I also discussed Piedmont's review period hedging activity. During the review period in this proceeding, Piedmont continued to use its best cost approach to purchasing gas. This approach involves 5 components: the price of gas, the security of gas supply, the flexibility of gas supply, gas deliverability, and supplier relationships. Each of these factors is discussed in detail in my testimony. Collectively, they establish a standard for purchasing gas that has been successfully used by Piedmont for many years. Most of Piedmont's primary gas supplies are purchased under arrangements that are standard in the industry and which involve the payment of reservation fees for firm supplies priced at market-based indices. Piedmont also purchases short-term supplies in the spot market, again at market-based prices as necessary to meet its customers' need during non-critical periods. Before purchasing these supplies, Piedmont determines the specific need for new supply by engaging in a thorough evaluation of customer needs, customer usage characteristics, system growth, and available supply options, among other things, as described by Mr. Patton in his testimony. My testimony explains that during the review period, the company entered into various new supply arrangements consisting of daily swing supply priced at the first of month index during November through March, daily swing supply priced at the daily market index during November through March, and daily swing supply priced at the daily market index during December through February. My testimony also discusses how the company has taken a number of steps to manage its gas costs consistent with its best cost policy, including active participation at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, restructuring supply and capacity contracts to adjust to market conditions, and to promote more efficient use of its system and of its capacity and commodity rights. In addition, my testimony explains that during the review period, Piedmont continued to utilize its hedging plan as an insurance policy to reduce gas cost volatility to its customers. Piedmont's hedging activities for the review period in this proceeding resulted in a net economic cost to customers of approximately 47 cents per month. Piedmont did not deviate from its approved plan during the review period. The company uses a deliberative process to maximize the value of its capacity and supply assets when they are not needed to serve Piedmont's customers. This process includes the solicitation of bids for long-term delivered supply sales and extensive market research to establish daily or monthly sales prices. These practices resulted in $4,416,814.61 in secondary marketing credits this year. In summary, my testimony states that Piedmont believes that its gas purchasing policies are prudent and that its review period gas costs were prudently incurred.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brees is available for questions from the commission at this time.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, questions for Mr. Brees?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Belser?
thank you. Good morning, Mr. Brees. Thank you for
Morning.
appearing today. On page 2 of your testimony, you list the 5 components of the best cost gas purchasing policy that Piedmont uses, and then you go on to explain each component over the next 3 pages. My question is, how do those components relate to each other? Do you assign a numerical value to each component when y'all are looking at these various things, or are y'all just using your judgment and which one gets more weight?
The security of the gas supply is definitely the most important aspect, because we have to make sure that the gas is delivered to serve our firm customers. The other 4 are weighted equally.
Thank you. And then on page, when you're talking about the hedging plan, on page 14, starting at line 16, I note the term net economic results, and then on line 18, a net economic cost, and then on line 21, net economic impact. How do those relate to each other? I reckon are those just fancy terms in saying that it's going to cost each customer 47 cents a month for the hedging plan in this case?
Yeah, so basically to go back, the net economic cost of the $867,024.38 is basically what was incurred to purchase all the hedges during the review period. What we were saying earlier is there was no net proceeds during this review period as compared to the previous year, is because the gas prices have been decreasing rapidly since last review period, and so all of our hedges expired out of the money, which means that the strike prices for those hedges were higher than the market price, which means that the customers are getting historically low priced gas. However, the cost is what we paid for the hedges. That includes the option premium to execute those hedges, and any consultation fees and broker fees for the hedges.
Okay. And the cost, I believe you indicated, was 47 cents a month per customer, or per?
That's correct.
Is that per customer, per decatherm, or how's that?
It's per customer per month.
Okay. And I think you just answered this, but the falling gas prices, I mean, have y'all ever seen anything like that before, that trend of what you've seen over the last year?
Not as drastic as it has been. These are obviously historically low gas prices. There's a lot of domestic supply. It's abundant, and it appears that it'll be this way for quite some time.
And have y'all identified any drivers or causes of the what's driving the prices down and keeping them down?
It's just the amount of supply that we have access to. There's all the shale plays throughout the U.S. Most of the gas years ago used to be drilled for in the Gulf of Mexico, but now it's onshore. And even though the rig counts have decreased over the years, the producers are getting much more efficient with being able to get dry gas out of the wells that they're drilling. And so it's just that we have access to a lot of supply, and looks like we'll have that for years to come.
Have y'all noticed any impact due to COVID-19 with shutting down the economy, trying to get it back up, people staying home? Has that caused any impact?
We have not had any issues from the supply side due to COVID-19.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Brees?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Urban.
Commissioner Urban.
Thank you. Mr. Brees, how are you this morning?
Pretty good. How are you?
Fine, sir. Given the projections for the cost of natural gas to continue to decline dramatically to the oversupply domestically, do you think it might be wise to put the hedging program on hold, or maybe adjust it so that you're not having to spend as much money in what would, in normal times, I understand the reason for hedging, but given the market conditions, is that something you'd consider?
We haven't considered making any changes to the hedging plan, but we are periodically and constantly reviewing it and evaluating if any changes need to be made. But we feel that it offers a low insurance cost policy that is reducing the gas price volatility for our customers. And so until we see otherwise, we're going to continue with the hedging plan and feel that it's prudent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Breeze.
Get close to your phone too, Commissioner Whitfield, so we can hear you.
Let's see if I can get the volume up. How about that? Is that a little better?
Better.
Mr. Breeze, of course, none of us have a crystal ball, and as Commissioner Urban was questioning you, you referred to the hedging program as a low-cost form of insurance, and I can remember coming on the commission in 2008 how high gas prices were, and as you know, a lot of LDCs abandoned their hedging programs, and we had several issues here in South Carolina where we quizzed and questioned as ratepayers weren't being well served there as gas prices were falling. But now that they are at historic lows, and as you just said to Commissioner Belser, the number of rigs is declining. At some point, it's going to become unfeasible at some point it's going to bottom out, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And at that point, you would probably need your hedging program at least to be in place. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct. And there could be, other legal, issues or regulations that are put in place that maybe limit fracking or make it more expensive for the producers to get the gas out of the shale plays, and that could have an increased effect on prices as well.
And as things become more difficult for the producers, certainly prices, if they haven't bottomed out at some point, if they haven't completely bottomed out, at some point the market forces will cause things to probably trickle back upward. Is that accurate? Would you say that would be accurate?
That's possible, yes.
And we know we have the supply, but at some point you get into some production issues. Let me ask you another question. Some of the commissioners may want to go down this path with maybe an ORS witness or two, but I wanted to get you while as a company witness on the stand just for a second. You've got a LNG facility you were supposed to bring online over in Robeson County, eastern North Carolina, and I guess I'll drop the elephant in the room at this point. We all know what the big news was over the weekend, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline being halted, that project. How do you, what is your intent, how do you see that facility, because that project would have practically terminated right there, if not Robeson County, I believe immediately adjacent to it. I'm not quite as familiar with my North Carolina counties, but certainly close. And how would that impact your investment in that facility?
ACP had no effect on the Robeson LNG project, and that's still planning to go in service next year, I believe. Jeff Patton, who's going to testify next, would be able to answer any questions on the Robeson LNG plant or ACP.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, if not, Ms. McGrath, any redirect?
No redirect.
Okay. Mr. Brees, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony, and you may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McGrath.
Mr. Chairman, Piedmont would like to call Mr. Jeffrey Patton as a witness.
Okay, Mr. Patton, we'll swear you in if you can raise your right hand. And do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Patton, can you please state your name for the record?
It's Jeffrey Patton.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Piedmont Natural Gas Company. I'm the manager of pipeline services, and I'm responsible for the planning of additions of interstate pipeline capacity, storage capacity, as well as forecasting the needs of the company for its design day and forecasting for monthly and daily needs, as well as overseeing activities at FERC related to the pipelines and storage facilities that we do business with.
And did you prepare or cause to be prepared direct testimony that was pre-filed in this docket on June 2nd, consisting of 11 pages and 12 exhibits marked JCP-1A through JCP-7?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you have any corrections to your testimony and or exhibits that you would like to make at this time?
I do.
Let's walk through those. And Commissioners, Piedmont filed this morning, as well as circulated by email, red line pages of these of Mr. Patton's testimony, as well as a redlined exhibit.
Okay, thank you. I think we have those.
Okay, so Mr. Patton, turning to page 3 of your testimony, I see that there are 2 changes made. Can you please explain to the Commission the 2 changes?
Sure. So starting on line 5, we found these corrections due to an error in the source of the data that we pulled for the amount of decatherms during the review period. And so starting on line 5, we are striking the 65,188,728 and replacing it with 65,476,084 decatherms.
And did that correction cause you to make a correction on line 14 of page 3?
Yes, that's correct. So on line 14, we struck the 65 million number and replaced it with the 60,974,994 decatherms.
Thank you. And I see there's one deletion on page 4 of your testimony.
That's correct. Starting on line 14, that last sentence, we struck that sentence relating to the design day temperature being adjusted and addressed that on page 5 and related to the question regarding the design day requirements for the future.
And it looks like that answer was modified between lines 5 and 11 to address the fact it looks like the design day temperature changed. Is that correct?
That's right. So we did adjust the design day temperature after reviewing the historical weather, including the winter 2019 and 2020 data. We reviewed to determine that the design day temperature should be slightly adjusted from 8.68 degrees to 8.71 degrees Fahrenheit.
Thank you. Aside from making corrections on these 3 pages of your testimony, do you have any other changes to make to your testimony?
No other changes.
Do you have any changes you'd like to make to the exhibits that were filed in support of your direct testimony?
Yes, I do.
Can you please explain what that would be?
So on exhibit JCP-5C, beginning on line 46, the number of days that the Robeson LNG is available, it had listed 10 days, but that was corrected to be 5 days, relating to the 200,000 a day capability of the facility.
So rather than that facility being available 10 days a year, you corrected your exhibit to state that it's now available for 5 days a year.
That's right, 5 days a year at 200,000 a day. That's right.
Great, thank you. Aside from that correction to exhibit JCP-5C, do you have any other corrections to your exhibits?
No other corrections.
Okay, great. Do you consider these changes to be material?
No, I do not.
And with these corrections, if I were to ask the same questions that are contained in your pre-filed direct testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would be.
At this time, Mr. Chairman, Piedmont would move to have the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Patton be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand, and that his 12 exhibits marked JCP-1A through JCP-7, including a redlined exhibit, JCP-5C, be marked for identification and entered into evidence as a composite hearing exhibit number, I believe, 3.
3, yes. Okay.
Excuse me, and it may, if the commission would prefer, we'd also like to include in composite hearing exhibit number 3 the 3 redlined pages of his testimony. I'm not sure if that's necessary.
Yes, we'll do that.
Okay.
Right. Okay, Mr. Patton's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the records of given orally from the stand. That's with corrections. And also his exhibits will be entered as hearing exhibit number 3, and that will be with the redlined exhibit number 5C, I think. And his redline testimony. Okay. Now, Ms. Wessinger Hill and Ms. Wheat, we're on the bunny there. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patton, have you prepared a summary of your testimony?
I have.
Please read your summary for the commission.
Sure. My name is Jeffrey Patton, and I am the manager of pipeline services for Piedmont Natural Gas Company, Incorporated. I pre-filed direct testimony and exhibits in this proceeding on June 2nd, 2020. The purpose of my direct testimony is to discuss the market requirements of Piedmont, South Carolina customers, including the projected growth in those markets, the capacity acquisition policies and practices we employ to serve those markets, and the efforts undertaken by Piedmont at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to ensure that interstate transportation and storage services are reasonably priced. As of March 31st, 2020, Piedmont served approximately 151,812 sales and transportation customers in South Carolina. During the review period in this proceeding, Piedmont delivered 65,476,084 decatherms of natural gas to its South Carolina customers. Roughly 93% of those deliveries went to Piedmont's firm market, primarily consisting of residential, small commercial, small industrial, and power generation customers. The remaining 7% of those deliveries were made to Piedmont's interruptible market, primarily consisting of large commercial and large industrial customers. My testimony discusses how Piedmont calculates the design day needs of its system based on the number of factors and inputs, including historical weather, historical operating experience, forecasted customer additions, and projected demand. Much of the data underlying these factors is attached to my testimony as exhibits. Piedmont then calculates a reserve margin to ensure its ability to provide safe and reliable service to its firm customer base during design day conditions. Piedmont's design day calculations for the winter 2020-2021 were performed using the company's standard methodology. This methodology reflects a design day temperature of 8.71 degrees Fahrenheit. Piedmont acquires incremental capacity to meet its projected load growth utilizing the best cost methodology, which is described in Mr. Breese's testimony. Piedmont generally seeks to match its capacity acquisitions with the needs of its firm customers by acquiring year-round capacity to serve its base load requirements, storage capacity to serve its seasonal demand, and peaking services to serve its peak day needs. My direct testimony describes how Piedmont plans to supply its estimated future growth requirements during the next 4 years, beginning with the 2020-2021 winter season. Lastly, my testimony discusses how Piedmont is routinely involved in matters before the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Piedmont intervenes and actively participates in matters that could have a material impact on the cost paid by Piedmont, South Carolina customers for upstream transportation and storage capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Patton is available for questions from the Commission at this time.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Patton?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Mr. Patton, happy to have you with us today, sir.
Thank you.
Pat,
Good morning.
I'm going to follow up some on the questions that were asked Mr. Breeze. I know the epidemic didn't start until about the end of your test year, but since that time we've had industrial, retail closings and stay-at-home people. Can you tell me any impact this has had on the natural gas supply?
Sure. And so from a demand perspective, we have seen impacts from the COVID-19. Initially, we saw our system loads in the Carolinas reduced to around 20% from previous levels, and that since the economy has reopened somewhat, we've seen that rebound to around a 5% reduction. For industrials, initially we saw decreases around 15%, but that has since come back to around 10%. So we're still seeing a reduction in industrials as well from a demand perspective.
Pretty well across the board then, a reduction. Okay. Thank you, sir, very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Any other questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Patton, happy to have you with us. I would just like to, if you would, maybe to follow up on the exchange I had with Mr. Brees and any insights you might share there.
Sure. Just so regarding the question about the Robeson LNG, so that is under construction and it is planned to go in service the summer of 2021 and be available to meet our peaking needs starting in the winter 2021. You know, that project is not impacted by the cancellation of ACP. It will still be readily available to provide peaking service to our customers, and so it is moving forward as scheduled.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. We're happy to have you with us. I see you've testified before other commissions. I don't know how you've not been to ours, but wanted to ask you again. I know we're in a PGA hearing here, and my legal counsel may jump a little bit at this, but at some of the allowable ex parte briefings, both the company and Duke have discussed how the need might be for laterals, more laterals to get the gas over into other areas. And anyway, I just wondered what your, since this is your area, manager of pipeline services, what your knowledge or anything you could share with us on that about what the company may have to do now with this news.
Sure. So yes, I'm familiar with what you're talking about. So as ACP was designed, it came on the eastern part of North Carolina and hit our system in the right areas to provide pressure and support. And given that project's cancellation, in order to provide that same level of pressure and system enhancements, we are looking at various scenarios in which we would have to increase either infrastructure from the west to the east to provide that same level of benefit that ACP provided. And so given the recent announcement, we're in the early stages of evaluating alternatives.
Thank you. And I guess lastly, sometimes a common general statement is made sometimes at NARUC that we don't have a supply issue in this country, but we do have at times a capacity issue and an infrastructure issue. Would you generally agree with that statement?
I would say, in general, we have seen the trend of developing large interstate pipeline infrastructure over the past years has become increasingly difficult for interstate pipeline developers and companies to execute those projects on time.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Good to have you with us. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitfield. Commissioners, any other questions? If not, Mr. Patton, thank you for being here and thank you for your testimony, and you may step down.
Thank you.
Commissioner, if I could have one question on redirect, if possible.
You certainly may. I forgot about that. I'm glad you stepped up.
No problem. Mr. Patton, just wanted to ask for the record, you know, do you have any concerns or issues that Piedmont's customers will continue to be served in light of the ACP announcement?
I do not. You know, we are confident that we'll be able to serve our customers even with the cancellation of ACP, and so there are no concerns around that issue.
And did customers bear any costs associated with ACP?
No, customers are not going to bear any costs associated with ACP.
Great, thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. And I apologize for skipping that redirect. Any recross on that redirect, commissioners? Okay. If not, then Mr. Patton, I think we are ready to let you step down now. So thank you for being here.
Yep. And that concludes Piedmont's direct case, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I appreciate that, Ms. McGrath. Now, Ms. Hammonds, Office of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. ORS calls Mr. Michael Seaman Wynn.
Okay, Mr. Seaman Wynn, we'll need to get you to raise your right hand and get you sworn in. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Will you please state your name and occupation?
My name is Michael Seaman Wynn. I'm employed by the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff as Deputy Director of Energy Operations.
And are you the same Michael Seaman Wynn who pre-filed 7 pages of direct testimony on June 16th in this matter?
Yes, I am.
And was that testimony prepared by you or under your direction?
Yes, it was.
Do you have any changes to that testimony?
No, I do not.
Mr. Chairman, we ask that Mr. Michael Seaman Wynn's testimony be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Seaman Wynn's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as though given orally from the stand.
Thank you. Mr. Seaman Wynn, have you prepared a summary?
Yes, I have.
Would you please present that now?
Absolutely. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. The purpose of my testimony is to present ORS's findings and recommendations regarding review and examination of Piedmont Natural Gas Company during the review period. First, ORS found the company's gas purchasing policies to be reasonable. Second, ORS found that Piedmont managed its hedging program in compliance with prior Commission orders. Third, ORS determined Piedmont adhered to its Commission-approved GCRM tariff. Fourth, ORS found that the company is prepared to meet its obligations for the upcoming winter projected firm customers' requirements. Subsequent to the filing of my direct testimony, a settlement agreement was entered into between the company and ORS. The settlement agreement is offered as a fair, reasonable, and full resolution of the parties' issues in this proceeding. Further, ORS believes that the settlement agreement is in the public interest of South Carolina and respectfully requests that the Commission approve the settlement agreement as presented.
Mr. Chairman, the witness is available for questions from the Commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Seaman Wynn?
Chairman.
Commissioner Belzer.
Good morning, Mr. Seaman Wynn. How are you?
Good, Commissioner. Good to see you today.
Thank you for being here today. I noticed on last page of your testimony, page 7, you referenced that the current benchmark commodity cost of gas is $2 per decatherm. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And there is no request at this time to increase or change that amount. Is that correct?
That's correct. Not at this time.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner Belzer. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Any redirect? Ms. Hammonds?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Seaman Wynn, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony, and you may step down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
ORS now calls Mr. Daniel Sullivan.
We're waiting to get Mr. Sullivan's picture up here. There he is. Okay, Mr. Sullivan, if you will raise your right hand, and do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Hammonds.
Mr. Sullivan, would you please state your name and occupation?
Yes, my name is Daniel Sullivan. I'm employed by the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff as the Deputy Director of the Audit Department.
And are you the same Mr. Daniel Sullivan who pre-filed 10 pages of direct testimony and 3 exhibits on June 16th in this matter?
Yes, I am.
And was this testimony and were the exhibits prepared by you or in your direction?
Yes, they were prepared by me.
Do you have any changes to any of those?
No, I do not.
Mr. Chairman, we ask that Mr. Sullivan's 10 pages of pre-filed direct testimony be read into the record as if given orally from the stand, and his 3 exhibits, DFS 1 through DFS 3, be marked for identification and entered into the record as the next composite hearing exhibit, which I believe is hearing exhibit number 4.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as though given orally from the stand, and his exhibits, DFS 1 through 3, will be entered as composite exhibit number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sullivan, have you prepared a summary?
Yes, I've prepared a brief summary.
Will you please present that now?
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. The purpose of my testimony is to set forth the findings resulting from ORS's examination of the company's purchased gas deferred account, storage inventory activity, and hedging account activity for the period April 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2020. ORS has included the results of our examination in audit exhibits DFS 1 through DFS 3. Audit exhibit DFS 1 presents for each month the components which contribute to the company's overcollection in the purchased gas deferred account for the period. Audit exhibit DFS 2 summarizes the company's gas storage inventory activity during the review period. Audit exhibit DFS 3 details the results of the company's hedging activity for the review period, as well as the cumulative loss since the inception of the program. Based on our examination, it is the opinion of ORS that the overcollection balance in Piedmont's purchased gas deferred account at March 31st, 2020 of $1,450,387 shown on company witness Tomlinson's exhibit MBT1 is accurately stated.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Chairman, Mr. Sullivan is available for questions from the Commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Sullivan?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Sullivan.
Good morning, Mr. Whitfield.
Mr. Sullivan, I believe this came up when Ms. Tomlinson, the witness for the company, was on the stand, and Chairman Randall quizzed her a little bit about this, but the weather normalization amounted to a $2.8 million increase to ratepayers during the test period, in your exhibit DFS1. I guess number one, how did you determine the WNA was accurately calculated as you stated?
We receive monthly reports, WNA reports from the company, and as part of ORS's review, we sample some of the customers' bills for the WNA charges that are charged to the customers, and we ensure that the WNA calculations are calculated correctly.
Mr. Sullivan, are you concerned that warmer weather trends could result in higher costs for ratepayers in future proceedings due to the WNA?
No, sir, I am not. In some years we experience colder than normal weather, such as the polar vortex that we experienced, several years ago. I think it was 2015, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And in that instance, or in that winter period, we had colder than normal weather, so the customers benefited from a reduced rate due to the WNA. This past winter, obviously, the net effect of the overall winter was a warmer than normal winter, so it did increase the rates charged to customers. However, this has a smoothing effect on the rates charged to customers, and so I don't have any concerns. And I also I'm not sure what the weather is going to do in the future. In this coming winter period, whether it be colder or warmer than normal.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitfield. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, Mr. Sullivan, wait a minute. Any redirect?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Hammonds. Okay, Mr. Sullivan, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for participating today, and you may step down.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that everything from ORS, Ms. Hammonds?
Nothing further from ORS.
Okay, so I think the next thing is I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Wessinger-Hill to talk about the, once again, about the proposed orders.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to confirm that the proposed order is due no later than close of business on Thursday, July the 16th, and that the parties have stipulated that they're going to prepare one as a joint order. Also, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to run over the exhibits just to make sure we have everything correctly included and numbered. Counselors, if you will check your notes as well as I do this, and please advise if there's any issue. Hearing exhibit number 1 is the settlement agreement entered into between the parties. Hearing exhibit number 2 is a composite exhibits of Ms. Tomlinson, which are MBT-1 and MBT-2. Hearing exhibit number 3 is also a composite exhibits with regard to those provided by Mr. Patton, and those are the 12 original exhibits that were pre-filed, which are JCP-1 through JCP-7, as well as the corrected exhibit number JCP-5C, both the red line version and the clean copy, and also the 3 pages of red line testimony indicating the corrections to Mr. Patton's testimony. And hearing exhibit number 4 is the composite exhibits of Mr. Sullivan, which are 3, which is DFS-1 through DFS-3. And are there any changes to the exhibits, counselors?
None from ORS.
Piedmont?
Sorry, I was on mute. That sounds correct to Piedmont as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, everything is in order.
Thank you. Is there anything else to come before us in this hearing? If not, we want to thank everybody for participating, for being here today, for your preparation. I want to thank everybody that made this virtual hearing possible, and we are adjourned.